All right, we're reading the news. This is the Forge News, November 10th, 2024. It is a Sunday. I just got through watching Nomad Capitalist. Very cool channel. If you're interested in learning how to make six figures and more, Nomad Capitalist is the channel to go. Nomad Capitalist. I figure it would be possible to just, maybe be able to type it, be able to just know it by heart. There we go. All right, there you have it. Nomad Capitalist. Very nice channel. I've been watching him to find out ways to become an expat for a few months now. I don't really nearly have enough money, and I don't really have a plan, but I'm going to try the coming years to figure one out. When my mother passes away, I definitely am going to try to get out of this country. America has no future. So I definitely want to have a plan to try to go overseas. And that's what's going to happen is when governments become tyrannical, the wealthy and the smartest and brightest people, they leave. And right now, the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are becoming more totalitarian and left-wing. And the best thing to do for the real smart people is to leave. Invest and plant your businesses overseas, and go overseas. So that's Nomad Capitalist. If you're interested in learning how to become an expat, immigrate overseas to where there's more freedom, there you go. Because Trump is not going to save you. Trump has no interest whatsoever in helping the little guy. Just let that sink in. All right, anyways, I'm going to get into the news. We're going to get into some news. Make it part of a special. So, we have some stuff about Evangelion, and the that's it. Hideaki Anno's closeness to Hayao Miyazaki lets him freely criticize one Hayao Miyazaki movie that has otherwise charmed the world. Let's see here. Hideaki Anno, the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion, has criticized Hayao Miyazaki's Porca Rosa due to the director's overwhelming presence in the movie. For those who closely know Miyazaki, would be able to see his portrayal under the mask of a pig in Porco Rosso. Hideaki Anno has worked on Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and Grave of the Fireflies, thus becoming close to Hayao Miyazaki. Hayao Miyazaki is very straightforward with his criticisms of the anime industry and mass-produced anime at large, but very few people dare to criticize his creations, and Hideaki Anno is one of them. The creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion has known Miyazaki for years and has some interesting opinions on one of his movies. Studio Ghibli's Porca Rosa has achieved critical and financial success, but Hideaki Anno is harder to please due to the closeness of Hayao Miyazaki. The duo goes way back to the production of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and Anno is one of the few people who is extremely comfortable around Miyazaki. Creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion is critical of Porca Rosa. A fan club book for Char's Counterattack was released in 1993, which also featured a discussion between Hideaki Anno and Yoshiyuki Tomino. In one of the excerpts, they began talking at length about Hayao Miyazaki and how he is extremely critical of the works of others. At this point, Anno claimed that he was critical of Porca Rosa himself. Don't get the Neon Genesis Evangelion creator wrong. He finds nothing wrong with Porca Rosa as a movie. Instead, his view stems from his in-depth knowledge and closeness to Hayao Miyazaki. But because I knew Miyazaki-san personally, I can't view it objectively. His presence in the film is too conspicuous. It's no good. In other words, it feels like he's showing off. Hideaki Anno. The renowned director then explained that Hayao Miyazaki had the main character of Porca Rosa act self-deprecating and calling himself a pig. But there are several factors that go completely beyond that image. Then put him in a bright red plane, has him smoking all cool like, even creates a love triangle between a cute young thing and a sexy older lady. Hideaki Anno. Mamoru Oshii explained that he felt Porca Rosa contained the truth of Miyazaki's personal life rather than the humanity of the world. He claimed that only people who knew Miyazaki personally would see his various troubles, especially with women. According to Oshii, if the pig mask is taken off, it is Hayao Miyazaki underneath. Hideaki Anno and Hayao Miyazaki go way back. Toshio Suzuki, the co-founder of Ghibli, explained the fascinating relationship between Hayao Miyazaki and Hideaki Anno in an article that was published in Gekkan Bunshun. In the article, Suzuki recounted that 5 months before the release of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, the studio was in a state of emergency due to various delays. This is when Hideaki Anno, who was in Osaka University of Arts dropout, showed up at their doorstep. Miyazaki saw Anno's sketches for an anime he had created and hired him immediately. According to Suzuki, Miyazaki loved Anno's art as well as style. At the time, Anno was homeless and had arrived in Tokyo with nothing but the clothes on his back. He drew cells all day and slept at his desk at night. Hayao Miyazaki left one of the most important scenes, the disintegration of God Warrior in the hands of Anno. Nausicaa was the only Ghibli movie Anno worked on other than Grave of the Fireflies. Once he had learned the tricks of the master, he would leave for someplace else. After the creation of Neon Genesis Evangelion, Anno told Suzuki that he considered it a continuation of Nausicaa, but done in his own way. Miyazaki often praised Anno for his straightforward style and frank opinions, probably because Miyazaki was the same way. Thus, Anno is ruthless in his criticisms of Miyazaki's works, but he is extremely comfortable around the Studio Ghibli founder. And that's it for that. So, any thoughts in chat about that news? Actually, the creator of Neon Genesis in Evangelion, Teodaki Anno, actually has some pretty distasteful things to say with regards to the guy that runs Ghibli Studio. All right, next in the news I have is the patents lawsuit of Nintendo and the Pokemon Company against the creators of Pal World. I believe it's from a South Korean-based studio. Here are the patents Nintendo, and the Pokemon Company are suing Pal World over. Nintendo is seeking an injunction against Pal World's developer Pocket Pair, along with a fine for the alleged patent infringement. This is interesting because all three patents that Nintendo has filed in its lawsuit were claimed after the release of Pal World in January of this year. Pal World developer Pocket Pair has revealed the patents at the center of the infringement lawsuit. Nintendo and the Pokemon Company filed in Japan back in September. Pocket Pair has also shared that, in addition to 5 million yen each plus late fees, and they're seeking an injunction against the game and compensation for a portion of the damages incurred between the date of registration of the patents and the date of filing of this lawsuit. The Pokemon Company cites 3 Japanese patents, number 7545191, number 7493117, and number 7528390. From the translation of the claims, they appear to describe Pokemon-style activities, with 191 focused on the act of throwing a ball at characters in a field, 117 tied to aiming, and 390 on writing characters. We'll have to dig more deeply into the original Japanese patent language and Japanese patent law to understand how strong these patents might be in the lawsuit. Nintendo and the Pokemon Company's lawsuit landed 9 months after Pal World's launch broke Steam records and racked up an impressive 12 million copies sold within its first month. Shortly after the launch, Nintendo released a statement saying that it was aware of Pal World and would be investigating claims that the game ripped off Pokemon designs and other elements of Nintendo's monster catching game. The suit has led to the delay of Pal World's Japanese PlayStation 5 launch, but hasn't stopped the development of a mobile port of the game licensed by PUBG, mobile publisher Krafton. To close the announcement, Pocket Pair said, "We will continue to assert our position in this case through future legal proceedings." And if you would like to know more about that news, I will be glad to tell you more. But insofar as that is done, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next thing. All right, next in the news, AlJazeera.com. Yes, Israel reacts to Donald Trump's return to power in U.S. election. It will be Minecraft as usual for Israel in Gaza and Lebanon under the incoming Trump administration, analysts say. A congratulatory billboard shows elected U.S. President Donald Trump on November 7th, 2024, in Tel Aviv, Israel. Even before the U.S. presidential election polls had closed on Tuesday night, Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir had taken onto Twitter posting "yes" in English, while adding emojis of a flexing bicep and images of the Israeli and American flags. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was only slightly slower in congratulating former U.S. President Donald Trump on his triumph in the U.S. presidential election, becoming the first world leader to do so and framing Trump's victory as a powerful recommitment to the great alliance between Israel and America. Benjamin Netanyahu, dear Donald and Melania Trump, congratulations on history's greatest comeback. Your historic return to the White House offers a new beginning for America and a powerful recommitment to the great alliance between Israel and America. This is Benjamin Netanyahu's tweet. This is a huge victory in true friendship. See if I can pull up the full tweet. Yours, Benjamin and Sarah Netanyahu. All right, so that was the full text of the tweet. Two days before this week's election, which saw Trump stage one of the wildest political comebacks in recent history, leading the Republican Party to a landslide victory, polls in Israeli media showed Trump had already won the hearts and minds of many in Israel. Asked who they would like to see in the White House, almost 65% of respondents said they preferred Trump over his rival, Kamala Harris. Among those who identified themselves as Jewish, the difference was even more marked, with 72% of those polled telling the Israel Democracy Institute they felt Israel's interest would be better served by a Trump presidency. This is a further lurch towards the Republicans. A similar poll conducted by the same body in 2020 showed that 63% of Israelis favored Trump over the eventual victor, Joe Biden. For Vice President Kamala Harris, who polls showed took a beating for her administration's unflinching, if occasionally critical, support of Israel's war on Gaza and its refusal to halt military aid, celebrations of Trump's win in Israel likely come as another twist of the knife in her defeat. A watershed moment. People are celebrating now Polestar and former political aide to, among others, Netanyahu, Mitchell Barak, told AI Jazeera from Jerusalem. I mean, you've seen the polls. People see this as a win for Israel and for Netanyahu. Netanyahu, gambled on this, reckoning that he just had to hold on till November and a Trump victory, and that gamble turned out to be right. Within Israel, people see this as being a watershed moment, he said. In the build-up to the 2020 election, Trump had told U.S. voters in a bid to win the Jewish vote that the Jewish state has never had a better friend in the White House than your president, Donald J. Trump. In this, unlike many of the former U.S. presidential statements, he appeared factually correct. In his first term as president, Trump defied international norms and recognized the occupied Golan Heights, Syrian territory, two-thirds of which is occupied by Israel as Israeli territory, accepted Jerusalem as Israel's capital, the first president to do so since 1967. Subsequently moving the U.S. Embassy and installed its pro-settler, damn stupid adverts, its pro-settler ambassador there, consolidating Israel's position within the region. The U.S. president also embarked on what he termed the Abraham Accords, leading to the normalization of relations between Israel and four Arab states, Bahrain, the UAE, Morocco, and Sudan, in return for U.S. concessions and, in many cases, access to Israel's cutting-edge intelligence and weapons technology. I see what's going on here, buddy. Military talks, weapons talk. I already read that article. Go back to the Israeli one. Let's see here. Weapons and intelligence. More recently, Trump emphasized his wish to reestablish the warm relationship he enjoyed with Netanyahu during his first presidency in July this year, when he welcomed the Israeli prime minister to his Florida estate, Mar-a-Lago. In contrast, the Biden administration's relations with Netanyahu, while strong, have cooled through the course of 13 months of war on Gaza. First, there were the repeated U.S. concerns over the Israeli campaign on Gaza that has so far, I mean this in a way that would be considered like in Minecraft, killed 43,391 people. All right, please do not censor this. Mostly women and children, and with many thousands more lost and presumed Minecraft dead under the Minecraft rubble. Then there were Biden's red lines on Israel's subsequent invasion of Rafah. And finally, the U.S. government's recent requests that aid be allowed into northern Gaza, which aid agencies have said sits upon the brink of famine. All this appears to have jarred with the Israeli prime minister, who in March this year went so far as to say that U.S. President Biden, whose unflinching military and diplomatic support has underpinned Israel's war on Gaza, was wrong in his criticism of Israel. Given the pressure that Netanyahu faces both at home from people who want a Gaza ceasefire deal to be done to secure some chance of retrieving the remaining Israeli captives there and abroad, where many countries are appalled by the levels of violence seen in Gaza, Netanyahu needs an American ally that is uncritical, analysts have said. Demonstrators in front of the Ministry of Defense building in Tel Aviv, Israel, carry banners and posters criticizing the government and demanding a ceasefire in Gaza and a swap deal for the captives held in Gaza on November 2nd, 2024. Mustafa Al-Haruf, Anadolu. End of the two-state solution. As well as being more likely to give Netanyahu free rein over his actions in Gaza and the West Bank, as is feared by Palestinians, in the wake of the election, Trump may also be the catalyst to putting paid to any notion of a two-state solution. People often accuse the Israeli right of never looking too far for war. Independent Israeli analyst Nimrod Flachtenberg said of Netanyahu and his cabinet, and they're often right. However, with Trump, they've recognized that his election probably marks an end to this two-state solution and Gaza as we've known it. In the U.S., despite its unflinching support for Israel's war on Gaza, the two-state solution, at least officially, remains a central tenet of the ongoing Biden administration's foreign policy in the Middle East, has its previous one since the signing of the Oslo Accords in the 1990s. In mid-May, Biden doubled down on the long-standing American policy, telling a graduation ceremony in Georgia, "I'm working to make sure we finally get a two-state solution." However, just weeks earlier, Trump appeared to take the opposite stance, telling Time magazine, "Most people thought it was going to be a two-state solution. I'm not sure a two-state solution anymore is going to work." Trump's sentiments echoed the Middle East peace plan, which he called the deal of the century, and presented towards the end of his first administration in 2020. To some observers, it read like an Israeli wish list. In it, among other measures, Trump affirmed his intention to recognize the bulk of Israel's illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank, acknowledge a unified Jerusalem as Israel's capital, deny the right of return to Palestinian refugees, and should statehood be granted to Palestine, ensure it remains demilitarized. With a newly returned Trump now in charge of both houses of Congress and the Supreme Court, there is no legislative or judicial bloc preventing the incoming Trump administration from delivering what the outgoing Trump administration has promised. Trump just doesn't care. He's not interested, Flachtenberg said of Gaza and Lebanon, where Israel has launched devastating attacks against the political group Hezbollah, so far killing 3,002 Lebanese civilians in the process in recent weeks. The only thing that's new is people claiming to be surprised. They shouldn't be. We've been here before, he said. Slaughter as usual. Netanyahu and Trump share the same genocidal agenda. Independent political scientist Ori Goldberg told Al Jazeera from within Israel, from where Al Jazeera is banned from reporting. Both are against what they see as progressive wokeness or identity politics. What's more, each assumes that the other is an idiot, that they can easily manipulate. However, Goldberg cautioned that at least one of those leaders' assessments of the other may be wide of the mark. I think Netanyahu may be a little short-sighted in how he sees Trump. Trump takes great pride in his anti-war stance, Goldberg said, suggesting that whatever promises had been made by Trump in 2020, practical support was likely to be limited to weapons and dollars. It's really unlikely he'd sanction American boots on the ground, but then let's face it, whoever accused Israel or Israeli politicians of playing the long game, he said, for Netanyahu especially, it's all about making it through to the end of that day. In the meantime, with the weapons, aid, and diplomatic support already provided by the Biden administration difficult to improve upon, Goldberg predicted little tangible change in the short term. Netanyahu will continue to do whatever he wants, just as he always has, Goldberg said. It'll be slaughter as usual. And the source is Al Jazeera English. So anyways, any thoughts about the recent Trump election? Thoughts about the ongoing war in Gaza and Ukraine? As I scoop up some more news. All right, this is for you, Chauncey Fatsack. Trump on day one, begin deportation push, pardon January 6th rioters, and make his criminal cases vanish. Trump on day one. Donald Trump has said he wouldn't be a dictator except for day one. According to his own statements, he's got a lot to do on that first day in the White House. His list includes starting up the mass deportation of migrants, rolling back Biden administration policies on education, reshaping the federal government by firing potentially thousands of federal employees he believes are secretly working against him, and pardoning people who were arrested for their role in the riot at the Capitol on January the 6th, 2021. I want to close the border, and I want to drill, he said on his day one plans. When he took office in 2017, he had a long list too, including immediately renegotiating trade deals, deporting immigrants, and putting in place measures to root out government corruption. Those things didn't happen all at once. How many executive orders in the first week? There will be tens of them. I can assure you of that. Trump's national press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, told Fox News on Sunday. Here's a look at what Trump has said he will do in his second term and whether he can do it in the moment he steps into the White House. Trump has said that within 2 seconds of taking office, he would fire Jack Smith, the special counsel who has been prosecuting 2 federal cases against him. Smith is already evaluating how to wind down the cases because of long-standing Justice Department policy that says sitting presidents cannot be prosecuted. Smith charged Trump last year of plotting to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election and illegally hoarding classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Trump cannot pardon himself when it comes to his state conviction in New York in a hush money case, but he could seek to leverage his status as president-elect in an effort to set aside or expunge his felony conviction and stave off a potential prison sentence. A case in Georgia where Trump was charged with election interference will likely be the only criminal case left standing. It would probably be put on hold until at least 2029. at the end of his presidential term. The Georgia prosecutor on the case just won re-election. Pardoned supporters who attacked the Capitol. More than 1,500 people have been charged since a mob of Trump supporters spun up by the outgoing president attacked the Capitol almost nearly 4 years ago. Trump launched his general election campaign in March by not merely trying to rewrite the history of that riot, but positioning the violent siege and failed attempt to overturn the 2020 election as a cornerstone of his bid to return to the White House. As part of that, he called the rioters unbelievable patriots and promised to help them the first day we get into office. As president, Trump can pardon anyone convicted in federal court, District of Columbia Superior Court, or in a military court-martial. He can stop the continued prosecution of rioters by telling his attorney general to stand down. I am inclined to pardon many of them, Trump said on his social media platform in March when announcing the promise. I can't say for every single one because a couple of them probably they got out of control. Dismantle the deep state of government workers. Trump could begin the process of stripping tens of thousands of career employees of their civil service protections so they could be more easily fired. You is a fired. He wants to do two things: drastically reduce the federal workforce, which he has long said is an unnecessary drain, and to totally obliterate the deep state, perceived enemies who he believes are hiding in government jobs. Within the government, there are hundreds of politically appointed professionals who come and go with administrations. There also are tens of thousands of careers, officials who work under Democratic and Republican presidents. They are considered apolitical workers whose expertise and experience help keep the government functioning, particularly through transitions. Trump wants the ability to convert some of those career people into political jobs, making them easier to dismiss and replace with loyalists. He would try to accomplish that by reviving a 2020 executive order known as Schedule F. The idea behind the order was to strip job protections from federal workers and create a new class of political employees. It could affect roughly 50,000 of 2.2 million civilian federal employees. Democratic President Joe Biden rescinded the order when he took office in January 2021. But Congress failed to pass a bill protecting federal employees. The Office of Personnel Management, the federal government's chief human resources agency, finalized a rule last spring against reclassifying workers. So Trump might have to spend months or even years unwinding it. Trump has said he has a particular focus on corrupt bureaucrats who have weaponized our justice system and corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus. Beyond the firings, Trump wants to crack down on government officials who leak to reporters. He also wants to require that federal employees have a new civil service test. Impose tariffs on imported goods, especially those from China. Trump promised throughout the campaign to impose tariffs on imported goods, particularly those from China. He argued that such import taxes would keep manufacturing jobs in the United States, shrink the federal deficit, and help lower food prices. He also cast them as central to his national security agenda. Tariffs are the greatest thing ever invented, Trump said during a September rally in Flint, Michigan. The size of his pledged tariffs varied. He proposed at least a 10% across-the-board tariff on imported goods and a 25% tariff on all goods from Mexico, if not more. Trump would likely not need Congress to impose these tariffs, as was clear in 2018, when he imposed them on steel and aluminum imports without going through lawmakers by citing Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. That law, according to the Congressional Research Service, gives a president the power to adjust tariffs on imports that could affect U.S. national security, an argument Trump has made. "We're being invaded by Mexico," Trump said at a rally in North Carolina this month. Speaking about the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, Trump said, "I'm going to inform her on day one or sooner that if they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send into these here United States of America." Roll back protections for transgender students. Trump said during the campaign that he would roll back Biden administration action seeking to protect transgender students from discrimination in schools on the first day of his new administration. Opposition to transgender rights was central to the Trump campaign's closing argument. His campaign ran an ad in the final days of the race against Vice President Kamala Harris, in which a narrator said, "Kamala is for they/them. President Trump is for you." The Biden administration announced new Title IX protections in April that made clear treating transgender students differently from their classmates is discrimination. Trump responded by saying he would roll back those changes, pledging to do some on the first day of his new administration and specifically noting he has the power to act without Congress. "We're going to end it on day one," Trump said in May. "Don't forget that has an order from the president that came down as an executive order, and we're going to change it on day one. It's going to be changed." It is unlikely Trump will stop there. Speaking at a Wisconsin rally in June, Trump said on day one he would sign a new executive order that would cut federal money for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content into the lives of our children. His words, not mine. Trump hasn't said how he would try to cut schools' federal money and any widespread rollback that would require action from Congress. Drill, drill, drill. Trump is looking to reverse climate policies aimed at reducing planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions. With an executive order on day one, he can roll back environmental protections, halt wind projects, scuttle the Biden administration's targets that encourage the switch to electric cars, and abolish standards for companies to become more environmentally friendly. He has pledged to increase production of U.S. fossil fuels, promising to drill, drill, drill when he gets into office on day one, and seeking to open the Arctic wilderness to oil drilling, which he claims would lower energy cost. Settle the war between Russia and Ukraine. Trump has reportedly said he could settle the war between Russia and Ukraine in one day. When asked to respond to the claim, Russia's UN ambassador, Vasily Nabenzia, said the Ukrainian crisis cannot be solved in one day, comrade. Leavitt, the Trump press secretary, told Fox News after Trump on Wednesday was declared the winner of the election that he would now be able to negotiate a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. She later said it includes on day one bringing Ukraine and Russia to the negotiating table to end this war. Russia invaded Ukraine nearly 3 years ago. Trump, who makes no secret of his admiration for Russian President Vladimir Putin, has criticized the Biden administration for giving money to Ukraine to fight the war. At a CNN town hall in May 2023, Trump said, "They're dying, Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying, and I'll have that done. I'll have that done in 24 hours, or you're fired." He said that that would happen after he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Putin. Begin mass deportation of migrants in the U.S. Speaking last month at his Madison Square Garden rally in New York, Trump said, "On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history to get the criminals out. I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered, and we will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail, then kick them the hell out of our country as fast as possible." Trump can direct his administration to begin the effort the minute he arrives in office, but it's much more complicated to actually deport the nearly 11 million people who are believed to be in the United States illegally. That would require a huge trained law enforcement force, massive detention facilities, airplanes to move people, and nations willing to accept them. Trump has said he would invoke the Alien Enemies Act. That rarely used 1798 law allows the president to deport anyone who is not an American citizen and who is from a country with which there is a declared war, or a threatened or attempted invasion or predatory incursion. He has spoken about deploying the National Guard, which can be activated on orders from a governor. Stephen Miller, a top Trump advisor, said sympathetic Republican governors could send troops to nearby states that refuse to participate. Asked about the cost of his plan, he told NBC News, "It's not a question of a price tag. It's not really. We have no choice. When people have killed and murdered, when drug lords have destroyed countries, and now they're going to go back to those countries because they're not staying here. There is no price tag." All right. 6.8 magnitude earthquake shakes Cuba after hurricanes and blackouts. Havana, an earthquake with a preliminary magnitude of 6.8 shook eastern Cuba on Sunday, after weeks of hurricanes and blackouts that have left many on the island reeling. The epicenter of the quake was located about 25 miles, 40 kilometers south of Bartolome Maso, Cuba, according to a report by the U.S. Geological Survey. Rumbling was felt across the eastern stretch of Cuba, including in bigger cities like Santiago de Cuba, as well as Holguin and Guantanamo. Local media in Jamaica also reported that the island felt the tremors. There were two immediate reports of major damages or injuries in Cuba. Residents in Santiago, Cuba's second largest city, were left shaken on Sunday. Yolando Tobio Taboa, 76, said that people in the city flocked to the streets and were still nervously sitting in their doorways. She said that she felt at least two aftershocks following the quake, but that among friends and family she hadn't heard of any damages. You had to see how everything was moving. The walls, everything, she told the Associated Press. Others reported hearing screams, adding that the quake was strong and stretched on. On social media, residents in the small town of Pelan reported minor damage, posting photos of crumbling roofs and cracks on building walls, not uncommon in Cuba, where many structures are older and in need of repair. The earthquake comes during another tough stretch for Cuba. On Wednesday, Category 3 Hurricane Rafael ripped through western Cuba with strong winds, knocking out power island-wide, destroying hundreds of homes and forcing evacuations of hundreds of thousands of people. Days after, much of the island was still struggling without power. Weeks before, in October, the island was also hit by a 1-2 punch. First, it was hit by island-wide blackouts stretching on for days, a product of the island's energy crisis. Shortly after, it was slapped by a powerful hurricane that struck the eastern part of the island and killed at least 6 people. The blackouts and wider discontent among many struggling to get by has stoked small protests across the island. After hurricanes, 2 earthquakes jolt crisis hit Cuba. Residents stood outside of their buildings after the earthquakes. 2 powerful earthquakes rocked southern Cuba in quick succession on Sunday, U.S. geologists said, just days after the island was struck by a hurricane that knocked out power nationwide. Yeah, this is the same one. The quakes cracked walls and damaged homes, but did not appear to have caused any deaths, according to preliminary reports. They left many residents running into the streets and badly shaken so soon after the passage of Hurricane Rafael, a Category 3 storm which struck the island last Wednesday. It's the last thing we needed, Dalia Rodriguez, a housewife from the town of Bayama in southern Cuba, told AFP, adding that the wall of her house has been damaged. The U.S. Geological Survey measured the second more powerful tremor on Sunday at a magnitude of 6.8 and 14.6 miles, 23.5 kilometers deep, some 25 miles off the coast of Bartolomé Maso in southern Granma province. It came just an hour after a first tremor, which the USGS put at a magnitude of 5.9. The quakes are the latest events in a cycle of emergencies for the communist-run island following 2 hurricanes and 2 major blackouts in the last 3 weeks. The island suffered a nationwide blackout on October 18th, when its biggest power plant failed, and it was then hit by Hurricane Oscar 2 days later. The effects of last week's Hurricane Rafael have sparked rare protests, with an unspecified number of people arrested, according to authorities. Cuba has been suffering hours-long power cuts for months and is in the throes of its worst economic crisis since the breakup of a key ally, the Soviet Union, in the early 1990s. Marked by soaring inflation and shortages of basic goods. People got scared. The state-run newspaper Granma said no deaths had been immediately reported from Sunday's quakes, but that they had been felt throughout eastern and central provinces of the Caribbean island nation. Here, people quickly took to the streets because the ground moved very strongly. Andres Perez, a 65-year-old retiree who lives in downtown Santiago de Cuba, told AFP via telephone of the first quake. It felt very strong. Really, my wife is a bundle of nerves, he added. There are houses with cracked walls, others with walls falling down, and some had their roofs collapsed. Karen Rodriguez, a 28-year-old hairdresser, told AFP from Canet de las Mercedes, a small town in Bartolomé Masso, other residents in Bayamo, a city of some 140,000 people, described street poles swaying. People got scared. Everyone came running out of the houses very scared, a 24-year-old welder, Levan Chavez, told AFP. The U.S. tsunami warning system said no tsunami warning had been issued. Hurricane Rafael left residents in Cuba without power for 2 days. With concerns of instability on the rise, President Miguel Diaz-Canel has warned that his government will not tolerate attempts to disturb public order. Local prosecutors said Saturday that an unspecified number of people had been arrested after demonstrations in the wake of Hurricane Rafael. Around 85% of residents of the capital had had their power restored on Sunday, according to the government, while the two worst-hit provinces in the west, Artemisa and Pinar del Rio, remain in the dark. All right. Donald Trump may never be sentenced for his 34 convictions. One killed, several injured in a shooting at the Tuskegee University in Alabama. Climate scientists detail how the ultra-rich, especially in the U.S., use jets like taxis. Researchers think that they have figured out how the brain refreshes memories. Bitcoin hits record high after Trump and GOP. Bitcoin rises above $81,000 as token becomes totem for Trump era. Bloomberg, Bitcoin rallied past $81,000 for the first time, boosted by President-elect Donald Trump's embrace of digital assets and the prospect of a Congress featuring pro-crypto lawmakers. Trump was declared the winner in Arizona, marking a clean sweep of the 7 U.S. battleground states. His decisive victory in the presidential election has prompted celebratory chest thumping from the digital asset industry, which spent over $100 million backing a range of crypto-friendly candidates. The largest token climbed as much as 6.1% on Sunday, before extending the gain to an unprecedented $81,497 early in the Asian day on Monday. Bullish sentiment lifted smaller coins too, including a surge in Dogecoin, a meme crowd favorite promoted by Trump supporter Elon Musk. With the dust from Trump's victory still settling down, it was only a matter of time before a run-up of some sort occurred, giving the perception of Trump being pro-crypto. And that's what we're seeing now, said Li Shi, Hong Kong managing director at market-making firm Eros. Trump vowed on the campaign trail to put the U.S. at the center of the digital asset industry, including creating a strategic Bitcoin stockpile and appointing regulators enamored with digital assets. Jubilant traders for the moment are paying little heed to questions such as the speed of likely implementation or whether a strategic stockpile is a realistic possibility. His broader agenda of stoking domestic economic growth, tax cuts, and reduced red tape has fueled a buying spree across stocks, credit, and crypto. The S&P 500 stock index last week hit its 50th record this year. Bitcoin has added about 92% so far in 2024, helped by robust demand for dedicated U.S. exchange-traded funds and interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve. The rise in the token, which scaled fresh records after Tuesday's U.S. vote, exceeds the returns from investments such as stocks and gold. The FTFs, powered by BlackRock Inc.'s $35 billion iShares Bitcoin Trust, posted a record daily net inflow of almost $1.4 billion on Thursday, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. A day earlier, the iShares ETF's trading volume jumped to an all-time peak, all signs of how Trump's victory is reshaping crypto. Trump's stance contrasts with a crackdown on digital assets under President Joe Biden. Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Gary Gensler repeatedly labeled the sector as rife with fraud and misconduct. The agency turned the screws on crypto following a 2022 market rout and a litany of collapses, notably the bankruptcy of Sam Bankman-Fried's fraudulent FTX exchange. Digital asset companies spent heavily during the election campaign to boost candidates viewed as favorable to their interest. Against that backdrop, Trump did an about-face, becoming a supporter of an industry he once labeled a scam. Trump has promised supportive regulation, and the sweep of the House and the Senate makes the passage of the crypto bills much more likely, wrote Neoli Atkinson, author of The Crypto is Micro Now newsletter, with assistance from Mumbi Gatau. America's swing toward Trump reveals deep fears about financial security. All right, that was the news. Chauncey Fatsack says, live, Forge News Alert. Great idea. Thank you. Jay Dank says, I still can't believe Harris lost. Like, wow. Well, I'm sorry that happened, bro. That your candidate lost. Trump could still get impeached, you know. But then I guess Mike Pence would be the new president. Interdimensional Lizard says, will Trump acknowledge Forge Gang? Yes, he will. On his first day in office, Trump will shout, Forge Gang! North 9494, fuck the green energy bullshit. North says, LFG. Isn't that a brand of an iPhone? 11 million. Wow. Yeah. 11 million. How exactly he's going to even remotely be able to get those people deported, I really doubt he can. Okay. Well, you saw the results of his first administration, North. All right. That has been the Forge News for Sunday, November 10th. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.